Officer Ryan Dale believed he was untouchable when he tore Sandra Jackson's driver's license into pieces, his smirk filled with disdain. To him, she was just another face in a system he thought he controlled. But Ryan underestimated her. Sandra Jackson wasn't just an ordinary citizen standing up for herself. She was the mayor's sister, a fierce advocate for justice, and the last person who would let an injustice slide. What began as a routine traffic stop, Sandra Jackson, 32 years old, was not just an attorney but a force to be reckoned with. Known for her unwavering dedication to civil rights and her sharp intellect, Sandra had built a reputation as one of the most formidable lawyers in her city. Every case she took on was personal. That day had been long and draining. Sandra had spent hours in a courtroom defending a marginalized client in a case that had exposed systemic inequalities. She emerged victorious, but the mental and emotional toll of the battle was evident. Driving home through quiet suburban streets, dressed in her tailored navy suit and low heels, she was the picture of professionalism. Her natural curls framed her face, and her deep brown eyes, usually brimming with determination, carried the weariness of someone who had given everything that day. Still, her resolve was unshaken. For Sandra, every case was more than just work, it was a mission. Officer Ryan Dale's aggressive posture was evident from the moment he stepped out of his car. His barked demand for her license and registration was laced with intimidation. Sandra, maintaining her composure, retrieved her documents and handed them over without a word. Dale glanced at her license and then, without warning or explanation, ripped it in half. The pieces fluttered to the ground like a deliberate insult. Sandra's calm mask didn't falter. She met his gaze and asked firmly, "What's the meaning of this?" Her tone was controlled, her eyes unwavering, but Dale only sneered. "People like you think you're above the law," he said, leaning closer. "Let me remind you you're not." Sandra's heart raced, but her face remained unreadable. Years of navigating situations like this had taught her the importance of staying calm. Quietly, she reached for her phone and began recording. Dale's smirk widened. "Go ahead, sweetheart. No one's going to believe a word you say," he taunted, his voice dripping with arrogance. But Sandra wasn't intimidated. She wasn't just standing up for herself. She was making sure the world saw the truth. She dialed her brother, Andrew Jackson, the city's mayor and a well-known advocate for justice. Speaking calmly but urgently, she recounted the incident. "Stay calm, Sandra," Andrew reassured her. "I'll take care of this." As Sandra ended the call, Dale's behavior escalated. Without her consent, he began rifling through her car, claiming suspicious behavior as his excuse. Sandra knew better than to engage. She sat silently, her phone still recording every unjust action. Dale pulled out legal briefs and case files from her back seat, holding them up as if they were incriminating evidence. "What's this?" he sneered. "Looks shady to me." Sandra's response was a steady silence. Her calmness only highlighted the absurdity of his aggression. Unbeknownst to Dale, a journalist driving by had stopped and recognized Sandra. He instinctively began filming the scene, narrating what he saw. Within minutes, the video was uploaded online, and the outrage began. The footage went viral, with thousands of viewers condemning Dale's actions and calling for accountability. Dale, oblivious to the growing storm, delivered one final taunt. "You're lucky I'm not hauling you off to jail," he said. Sandra locked eyes with him. This isn't luck, she thought. The next morning, Sandra stood outside the city police station, flanked by her brother Andrew and a team of civil rights attorneys. Protesters had gathered, their signs reading "Justice for Sandra" and "End Police Racism." The crowd's chants echoed through the streets, their voices filled with passion and determination. Inside, Dale was laughing off the situation. "Let her file her complaint," he scoffed to a colleague. "Nothing's going to happen. People blow these things out of proportion all the time." His arrogance was shattered the moment Andrew walked in, flanked by Sandra and her legal team. Andrew's commanding presence silenced the room. "Meet my sister," he said coldly, fixing Dale with a steely gaze. Dale's smug expression faltered. For the first time, fear crept into his eyes as the weight of his actions became clear. The police chief, scrambling to contain the situation, announced an internal review and promised swift action. But outside, the protests grew louder, news crews had arrived, and the story was gaining national attention. As Sandra addressed the media, her voice was steady and resolute. "This isn't just about me," she said. "It's about every person who has been judged, dismissed, or mistreated because of the color of their skin. This is about a system that must change." Andrew worked tirelessly with community leaders to push for reforms, including mandatory bias training for officers and the creation of an independent oversight committee. Sandra, using her legal expertise, filed a civil suit to ensure accountability. In the end, Officer Dale was stripped of his badge and became a symbol of the consequences of unchecked power. Sandra and Andrew's efforts led to meaningful changes in the city's policing policies. Weeks later, as they stood together reflecting on the journey, Sandra said, "This wasn't just about one officer. It's about dismantling a broken system, and we're just getting started." If you were inspired by this story, make sure to subscribe to Unfolded Tales Explained and press the bell icon to never miss a powerful story like this. See you in the next chapter.